A place where trains never stop. A woman who transforms paper plates into works of art. And sushi that looks too good to eat. Welcome to In Live. McT and you're watching In Live. We're bringing you stories from the pages of In Magazine. Think of us as In Magazine come to life. Today we're in the Mezzanine at Jules and Tyler. The restaurant also has a cafe with a coffee bar and hosts live music. Joining me now is Danny Mogul, the editor of In.
Now, Melissa, it's always good to be here. Now, recently we visited a place where artifacts and model trains tell the story of back in the day when the railroad was the king of transportation. For decades, it served rail passengers as Tyler's train depot, but no more.
Well, let's take a look at the Cotton Belt Depot Museum.
The mission of the museum is actually twofold. Number one is to keep alive the history of the Cotton Belt Railroad. Now, the Cotton Belt being the nickname of the St. Louis Southwestern Railroad. The railroad actually started in Tyler, Texas in 1877. And in 1996, it ceased to exist because the Union Pacific bought out the Southern Pacific. The Southern Pacific had purchased the Cotton Belt Railroad in 1932, or actually took over the Cotton Belt Railroad in 1932, and left it running as the Cotton Belt as an entity, but as a total subsidiary of the Southern Pacific Railroad. What we have in here are people's private collections, really. The McDaniel family gave us an awful lot from McDaniel. McDaniel actually had worked for the railroad for 50 years, and he had acquired a lot of things. He had over 130 lanterns. Now, we didn't get all 130 of them, thank goodness, because we didn't have room for them, but we got a lot of his lanterns. Clyde Bragg's wife, Sharon, gave the city, not the Cotton Belt Historical Society, but the city, the train sets that he had collected over his lifetime. All of this thing that you see down here, everything here and all in our cabinets over here, 200 engines, 1,600 cars, all the track and accessories and the transformers and all that went with it. She gave that to the city. And they said, asked the Cotton Belt Rail Historical Society if they would help build a setup for the kids so they could have, and then they said you can use the rest of it for your historical collection, because by that time the Cotton Belt Rail Historical Society had acquired an awful lot of memorabilia and artifacts from the Cotton Belt Railroad and the Southern Pacific Railroad and other railroads beside. You're only seeing maybe 1/10 of the photos we had. We just don't have wall space for it. I wish we had a bigger museum. What I'd like to be able to do is to have, where people can come in and have not only the photos, but have the story of the photo and what was in the photo. And so I have some of that, but we just limited the space we have. And the thing that we have advantage here that I just love is the fact that we have the model trains. Now, we're not a model railroad club. We're a historical society. All right, but we have the model trains to show what the trains look like from the very beginning to what they are today and how they progressed. The other advantage that we have in here is we have the real trains going by. And boy, when that happens, this place clears out because everybody wants to go out to see the train, okay? And there's nothing that's more overwhelming than standing 5 feet from a train as it goes by with all that noise. So, it's beautiful. It's a great place.
Danny, those trains look like they were so much fun. What was your favorite part about the museum?
Oh, well, you know, the model trains were really cool, but I think what I liked best were all the photos on the walls. Melissa, these are photos of old trains and railroad workers, and you don't get to see that much anymore. You know, and something else you don't see a lot of East Texas is the Austin stone style of home.
And speaking of, coming up next is our showcase home, made of Austin stone. The home blends both rustic and contemporary styles, and the homeowners call it Hill Country Modern.
My name's Trent Williams. I own Trent Williams Construction Management here in Tyler, and we built this home a couple of years ago for the homeowner. The homeowner and the designer worked really hard to create what we call a galleyway entryway. So as soon as you walk in, you basically see a large expansive opening. You open into what is almost a 26-foot wide room, and you literally have almost 26 foot of windows off the back that looks into the back porch.
I believe the homeowner's personality shows the minute you walk in the door. It's light and fun, and I think that it's gorgeous inside and out, and that reflects the homeowner.
In the initial design phase, I noticed that we had probably the largest back porch I've built in all my years of doing this, and I attempted to shrink it just a bit to help the cost, and the homeowner actually said we basically are building a back porch and there's a house in front of it. So the whole thing was designed around outdoor living and feeling like, I mean, here we are in the middle of town, but when you're in the backyard, you feel like you're out in the country. On the lower level, we have a split design. We have 4 really large bedrooms on one side, and then the other side is basically a master suite. That master suite has a open ensuite bathroom, almost a 250, 300 square foot master closet, and it also has access to a private study. So everything the homeowners wanted in their master suite is all in one area.
In every room you want something unexpected, and we incorporated the orange color. It's a barrel style with crystals and the polished nickel, and it's just gorgeous. It illuminates just the right amount of light. I think that every home should include a little feminine and a little masculine, and I think it brings it all together. This is the most rustic room of the house, but it's the homeowner's office, and I think it truly reflects his style, and mixing with hers, I think it works.
Second floor, obviously the downstairs is their main family living area, but the homeowners wanted the kids to have their own little retreat. So we have a very large, probably over a 30-foot large game room, and then it has a TV area, a large sectional for relaxing, and it also has built-in bunk beds, which has proven to be a success. They have a lot of sleepovers. So the homeowner utilized Pinterest and House, and she literally had a pictorial of every room in the house.
It's always helpful. You want to know what they like because you're designing for them. You want the home to reflect the homeowner.
We had pictures of the way the beams would be set above the case openings, the way that the breakfast room would flow from the living room into the kitchen. So we basically, the main challenge for us is to try to get the vision that she showed us in the pictures to come true in real life, and it did.
Melissa, the house is designed in such a way as soon as you walk in the front door, you can see all the way through it, out the window, and see that pool in the backyard.
Well, now we have a story of an artist who makes unusual wall pieces and huge art installations. And believe it or not, they all started out as simple white paper plates.
Paper plates, for me, they're a metaphor for the human life. Just like the paper plates are disposable, they're made to be disposed. But for me specifically, this piece, because it has so much of the Christian faith in it, just like we are made in the image of Christ, the paper is made from the tree. It is a complete physical transformation of the tree into the paper form. So especially in this installation, all that comes together. Starting with carving the wood block with the imagery that I wanted, and then printing on about 3,000 paper plates is what this piece had. in different colors. Some of the colors are based on the colors of this business, but others are more neutral colors. And then sealing those paper plates with an acrylic so that it has a little more lasting quality. Then at the site, once I came to the site, I had to, I spent few hours thinking about the space, thinking about how the patients will sit and how the light would come into the room. And then I started creating the wire form first for a couple of days. And once that was done, I started plugging the paper plates in. And after working on it for a day, it just didn't feel what I wanted to say, it didn't feel right. And so with the same form, I just twisted the cables that I used, and once it clicked in place, I remember it was 12:45 at night, and it clicked, and I said, okay, now I get to start my piece. And I knew that was the night I would be working all night. That was the night I did work all night because I was so excited I finally got the form that would work. It was exhausting to get that done because I had to use an electric ladder to go up and down, and when you're working this close to the piece, high above, you don't know how it's going to look, so you have to come down and then look up again to see what the final view would be. But I was really satisfied with the way it turned out. It changes the way it looks depending on where you look from. Even downstairs, there are 3 or 4 different views, and your interpretation could change completely based on where you're looking at it from. So I was excited. As I keep working, I see what I don't need and I start editing. And especially for this one, because it was a circle, I could start from one end and I start editing from one end and then go back. When I reached the other side, I knew that I had finished editing. And then one last look from the floor and I realized it was done.
Melissa, another of Abhi's big installation pieces can be found in the lobby of the Cowan Center at UT Tyler.
And this brings us to our next segment, the fashion spread. We're celebrating the holidays in style. They call it a touch of class. Models are wearing furs from Tatkov Furs and a classic tuxedo from Tux and Prom 101. Here at Jules, they're known for their delicious sushi dishes. They serve sushi that looks almost too good to eat.
Head chef Nacho Rodriguez gave us a few pointers on how to make a beautiful California roll.
Today we're going to be doing a very basic California roll. If you've never done sushi before, this is a very good roll to start off with. It's a very simple beginner roll. It's very popular and it's very, very good. So you start off by grabbing your nori paper, which is your seaweed. Go ahead and you start by putting rice on it. And you want to cover the entire surface area of the nori with rice. And you want to remember you want to keep your hands as moist and damp as possible, but not overly wet, so you're just not ruining everything. The rice is very sticky, so it'll stick to your fingers and everything else that it touches. And then you flip it over. We're gonna add our cucumber, which we pre-cut and have ready. We're gonna add our crab. You wanna make sure that you put it directly in the middle, leaving enough room for you to be able to roll it. And then we're gonna add our avocado. And you could put anything that you really want in it. You can get as creative as you want, or you could get as simplistic as you want. And as you're rolling, you want to make sure that you're holding your ingredients in the middle of the roll. And as you're rolling, you're kind of tucking it in and pressing down to create the roll. You want to make sure that everything stays on the inside, but you want to always make sure that your hands are damp in order to avoid the rice from sticking to your hands. A good tip to use is also to have some saran wrap over your roll in order to avoid it from falling apart. Now traditionally, obviously, this isn't fully recommended, but at the same time, if you've never done it before, this is a good tip. You take your sushi mat and you put it over the roll, and as you're pressing, you want to tuck your fingers underneath the roll to create the cylindrical shape. You want to make sure that you press everything completely inside, not over pressing it so it doesn't completely fall apart. But you want to tuck in the sides of it and as you create your shape. Next, you want to make sure that you take your sushi knife, and this, you can use any knife as long as it's extremely sharp. You don't want to ruin your sushi roll by cutting it with a dull knife. We usually like to make at least 8 pieces of a sushi roll, so you cut directly down the middle, off to one side, then the other, and then you divide each piece in half, giving you the 8 pieces. And always having just plain water to keep your knife from sticking too much to the rice is a great idea. And then you just pull off the plastic. The next thing that you do, and obviously you can serve it any way you want, and you could, like at this point, you can decorate it any way you would like, but for right now, being a very simple roll, we're just gonna use tare, which is just eel sauce. You can make any kind of sauce that you'd like. Like I said, you can get as simple as you want or as complicated as you'd like. There you are. It's a very basic, delicious California roll.
Now, Danny, that looked like a lot of fun, but I think I'm going to leave the sushi making to the professionals. Jules serves up Southern comfort foods, wok specialties, and burgers.
Melissa, this is the holidays. It's definitely the busiest time of year, and the East Texas social calendar is crammed with special events. Let's take a look at some of the things that are going on.
Next, we're headed to Lake Fork, where 2 brothers make fish replicas.
Let's meet Jason and Clayton Pierce.
I've been doing this for 25 years. I started doing it when I was in college as a part-time job while I was going to school, and I decided to quit school and broke my mom's heart and started doing this full-time. And my brother and I have been doing it for 23 years now, together as partners. In the beginning, we did about half skin mounts or so, and slowly progressed into all we do now are replicas. I think most people, the first thing they see when they look at them, of course, is the paint job. but there's a lot more to it also than just that. It's having the quality of the blank, having well, basically not having it look like a cartoon fish that you've painted really well.
So that's when the pictures really help out, not just for the paint job, but for the picking out the mold. I mean, you can have two fish that have the same measurements, but they don't look the same. But you can never have too many molds because they're all different shapes and sizes, just like we are. And so
some are better looking than others.
Right. And so, but then the other species, I mean, there's all different species. So we've been everywhere to make those molds. But it's a continuous process. I mean, we have storage buildings full, attics full, and I mean, we've got molds laying around everywhere, and we still don't have near enough. There's no way we would have been able to do anything as far as the volume if we hadn't started molding our own fish. And because, I mean, if somebody calls and they need 500 fish in 2 months, I don't have to tell them no. But that deal with Dean Rojas, we did his world record catch. And Dean, it was really neat. Dean had actually come to the shop and ordered something. He wanted all 5 fish on the same display. And he was on his way to the next tournament. Well, we decided, hey, why don't we, Dean might win this next one too. So what if we finished it up and we could present it to him at the final weigh-in if he wins? And sure enough, Dean won the next tournament, and we presented it to him on stage, and he didn't know we were there. It was just a big surprise because he just received this big check, and then they said, oh, and we have something else for you. And then here we came with this mount that he hadn't seen because we were hiding backstage, and it was just really cool. He was so excited. He was way more excited about his mount than he was the big check that they just given him.
Yeah, he kind of took the check and
yeah,
wow,
yeah, I wanted to look at his deal. So that was real neat.
So if it swims, we can either do it or we have done it, pretty much.
That brings our show to a close. Now we want to give a special thank you to Jules for allowing us to film on location today.
Yeah, it's been great being here.
Now catch us next time with more stories from In Magazine.
We've got a gun over here that we got in here, okay, several years ago, and it's an old Colt 45, okay, Western Colt, and it's sitting up there on the wall. And so please come in and see it. And it belonged to a famous outlaw, Sam Black Bart. Sam Black Bart held up a train right here at Winona, just a little ways up the track here, in 1897, and he shot somebody on the train, and as he jumped off the train, the Texas Ranger shot him, and he dropped that gun. Now, if you come in here when the moon is full, Sam's banging on that door to come get that gun and go shoot that Ranger, because it's still got the bullets in it. Now, there is another story that when they dug the first underpass under the track here, and not the one on Broad Street, the one on over, in 1932, they found that gun. But I like the Black Bart story a lot better. Yeah.
Those trains look like they would be fun to play with.
Okay. My line doesn't make any sense if you say that.
Oh, those trains look like they were a lot of fun. What was your favorite thing? Okay, those trains look like they were a lot of fun. What was your favorite thing about that museum?
You know, the model trains were very cool, but what I liked best was what I liked best were all the cool photos of the old trains and the train workers that are on the walls. You know, you just don't see things like that anymore. Abruptly. Okay.
Choo choo. Up next is our showcase home.